Well, so we just got the Friendship Games. The movie starts off with Sunset sits down to write in her book and send Twilight a message. As she does this, a mysterious stranger lurks around the statue portal entrance with a Ghostbuster-esque piece of technology as she detects the presence of magic and begins her investigation. And the big surprise major reveal, it turns out to be the human world Twilight. Twilight goes back to her lab in Crystal Prep and maintains her conspiracy board, allowing us to enter the credits. After the credits, Rainbow Dash holds a pep rally and inspires the students to have good school spirit and motivates them to want to try to win this year. We also learn that the main six are ponying up, as they say, more easily and more frequently, not just when they play their musical instruments. Sunset Shimmer is trying to learn why the magic is happening so that they don't get accused of cheating accidentally. Another thing that I've noticed for this movie as it's going on is that we're now just sort of accepting that the background characters are there and they're no longer a major deal. The spotlight's not on them, our attention isn't drawn to them for pandering reasons, they're just simply there. And because of this, we can see much more comfortable, natural roles for characters like Derpy, Lyra, Bonbon, and so forth, and we no longer have to force these characters into the background and draw the attention to them for pandering reasons. With this being said, there's also not nearly enough focus on the people who are supposed to be the main antagonists of the story, the Crystal Prep ponies. There's a team of 12 that gets eliminated down to a team of 6, and we don't spend nearly enough time getting to know these new characters, so we barely care about them and know basically nothing about them, except for the fact that they are all supposed to be opposites of the main 6. I say supposed to be because we don't get to spend enough time with them learning that they are the opposite personalities of the main 6. With all of this introducing new characters going on and not taking the time to properly endear us to these new antagonist characters, it might have been better to have gone with a collection of already existing antagonist characters. In the next sequence, we go through a montage to a relatively decent song with everybody competing in various events. I kind of wish it either hadn't done the elimination and we had kept all 12 interesting characters competing all the time, or that we had started with and ended with just the 6 and not had the elimination round. Twilight beats Sunset in the math competition, and the Crystal Prep students could really care less that they just had a victory. Twilight talks with Fluttershy. She explains what kindness is all about to Twilight by showing kindness to her herself. This causes Fluttershy to pony up in front of Twilight, which causes the medallion to drain Fluttershy, open up portals, and accidentally give Spike the power to talk, which freaks out Twilight and leaves Fluttershy drained. We move on to the second half of the Friendship Games. an outdoor competition including archery, roller skating, and motorbiking, in which 2 members of each team must complete each of the tasks before the next group can move on. Once Twilight has hit the bullseye, Applejack, showing off her element, causes her to pony up. Because she's hugging Twilight when this happens, she's immediately drained of her energy. This causes portals to open up. This time the portals are more numerous than before, and they unleash killer plants on the racetrack. The plants cause damage to the motorcycles that are in the race, causing Rainbow Dash to be loyal and go back to help her friend. This time the whole thing's been witnessed by everybody, and once Principal Cinch puts 2 and 2 together, she accuses the Canterlot students of using their magic to win all of the events. The only problem that I have with this issue is that magic was never used to win any of the events. The magic that was witnessed publicly only happened twice, and neither time did it contribute to the Canterlot students winning anything. Despite all of these facts, however, Cinch insists that the students have been using magic to cheat, and insists that the plants themselves were the cause of the Canterlot High students, completely ignoring the fact that they came out of the portals that were generated by Twilight's amulet. Under the assumption that all of the students of Canterlot High have been using magic to cheat this entire time, Cinch and the other kids from Crystal Prep lay the peer pressure on Twilight through a very awesome song to unleash the magic. If this was an episode of Jackie Chan Adventures, magic defeating magic would be perfectly justified. But in this particular case, magic did not get used to cheat, and now the other team would be using magic to defeat non-magic. When Twilight does release the magic so that she can give it to the other students to help win the games, what happens instead is the magic from everyone she's been draining goes directly into Twilight, and she transforms into an Alatorn demon. Once Sunset Shimmer gets a hold of the medallion, she suddenly figures out the mystery to how magic works in this world, and she's able to harness the magic inside each of her friends to allow herself to transform into a magical Alatorn angel. And we have a very short-lived but still epic angel versus demon battle. Sunset offers Twilight a hand in friendship that she should take to revert back to normal, so that she can have a shot at trying friendship and getting forgiven. The one thing that I think about when I watch this scene, however, is if portals to Equestria are opening all over the school, what's so bad about that? If the students were to fall into these portals, at the very worst, they would turn into one of 3 pony species, and they would be able to walk around Equestria until they found a portal leading home, and then they just come home. The only real downside to these portals opening is that they're causing destruction of property as they open. Now, if one were to assume that these portals open and people drop through them, and they enter the other side of the portal at sky height, yes, they could fall to some serious trouble. as they turn into ponies upon entering Equestria, are up in the sky as they exit the portal and are now plummeting straight down. This would give them a 2 in 3 odds of getting either the Pegasus form that would allow them to fly to safety, the unicorn form that would allow them to use magic to safely halt their falling, or the earth pony form that would just allow them to continue falling until they hit ground. But it could also be possible that this wouldn't even be an issue and they would just exit the portals in Ponyville on ground level and would not actually be falling anymore. They would then just be ponies and they'd be able to walk to the castle, go through the mirror portal, and come out the statue portal. At the end of the day, Twilight decides to join the Wonder Colts and be surrounded by people who want her as friends. The antagonist 6 aren't as bad as we think they are because they actually choose to save lives and put aside their rivalry, and they own up to the fact that they had done something wrong and they apologize for their actions, leaving Cinch as the only one who doesn't want to admit that she was wrong. Overall, this was a low stakes villain event. I think Cinch was a much better villain than Sunset Shimmer was in the first movie, and the stakes were certainly higher and the danger was more dangerous than it was in that first movie, and the defeat of the villain was a lot better than the defeat of Sunset Shimmer. But considering that the villain was just a high school principal and the only thing on the line was the reputations of the school for winning or losing a competition and Twilight's admittance into a private school that she ultimately chose not to go to, that kind of stuff being at stake is not as major as a group of magical creatures coming into the human world and trying to take over the entire world. The sirens may not have been as manipulative and cold-hearted as Principal Cinch was, but they certainly had a much more calculating plan put into motion. They hypnotized people with their songs, and they played every piece of their plan into motion so that everything right up into the end went exactly their way. And they had a much more major threat on their hands. So if I had to rank the movies, Rainbow Rocks overall would be in the top spot. Then Friendship Games would be second, and the first Equestria Girls movie would be third. Those are just my personal preferences. Overall, I found the movie to be a much smoother run than the other movies. It wasn't as distracting, but it also wasn't as epic. Still had a few writing flaws, and wasn't quite as funny, doesn't have quite as many parts that I looked forward to, but it was still a great deal better than the first Equestria Girls movie. Anyhow, that's all my thoughts I have on the subject for now. Thank you for watching and good night.